we're so lucky, A, to work with each other and to have this balance of two very different perspectives coming together. And I think Liz and I have so much respect for one another and, listen to each other and are open to each other's different views. But then we work with this team.
As usual, before we get to the episode, here's this week's Human Journey card for you. This is a card that's designed to meditate on, contemplate what I say. And if you want to go to the show notes and see the card itself, that would be great. I'm going to choose the card right now and tell you what to think about this week. Ooh, the card is Chance. The Chance card is a card that sort of contains the other suits. It contains an eagle, a bull, a human, and a lion, and also sort of a symbol for infinity or interconnectedness. So the thing about this card is that luck is sometimes with you and luck is sometimes not with you. And the key here is to roll with the roller coaster of life, because if things are going your way, capitalize on that. Take advantage of things going your way. Sort of, oh, I'm going to take this chance because things have been going great. If things aren't, now might be the time to sort of settle back in. And this being December, the holiday season full of stress and all of that, work with the flow of what's going on instead of trying to go against the current. The flow, going with the flow. They say if you get caught in a riptide to sort of swim parallel, don't try to make it back to shore because it's going to be too difficult. It's designed. The current is not going to work with you. But if you go parallel to the current, you'll be surprised at how much distance you end up covering. And then you're out of that riptide and then you can swim back to shore. And this is kind of one of those things. So if life is challenging, if you're being presented with a bunch of challenges, the key will be to go with the flow until you see a time where luck is changing and then work with that luck. And now, on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the Your Creative Mind podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. You are going to love today's guests. I was thrilled and honored and just incredibly excited to be a guest at one of their recent events, and it was fantastic. So I want to introduce you to, I'm going to just say their names just now so that we do this, Driscoll and Liz Yilmaz. And here is the thing about these two wonderful women. They're international performers, they're producers, and they are the powerhouse team behind Art Bath. Art Bath is an immersive salon series that has collaborated with Lincoln Center, the 92nd Street Y, hundreds of world-class artists. And they're not just shaping performances, they're shaping culture. And I got a taste of it when I saw them at the David Rubenstein Atrium at Lincoln Center just a couple of months ago, and it was incredible. And the thing about this is that we're going to be talking about some practical ideas that you can apply immediately to elevate your own collaborative process, because they're doing this as a community and as a collaboration. You're going to expand your creative circle because they have access to and work with incredible artists and designing artistic experiences that people can't stop talking about, which is why I hounded them and I said, you must be on my show. Please be on my show, because their work shows what becomes possible when artists support other artists. And honestly, by the end of our time together, I think you're going to have some tools and the inspiration to bring that same energy into your own creative life. I'm thrilled to welcome Mara and Liz. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. We're excited
Thank
to
you,
be here.
Izolda.
This is so much fun. So as I said, I attended Art Bath at the David Rubenstein Atrium, which I guess was in October, maybe even as far back as September. And it was such a joyful experience. Different kinds of artists doing visual art, sound art, all sorts of things. I'm so incredibly impressed with both of you because Art Bath has sort of become a world-class multidisciplinary creative space and audiences trust it. And so I would love to ask you, let's just jump on in. What got you to the place where you went, you know what? we're going to do this. We're going to come together and we're going to create something no one's ever done before. And we're going to bring art in sort of collaboration, many artists together to bring people these kinds of experiences. I would love to know what inspired you both to do that. And how did you get to the point where you felt like, yeah, I'm confident enough to try? Liz, let's start with you.
Oh my, that's a great question, and it really is the seed of Art Bath is the why. And for Mara and I think that came about because of the pandemic.
Mm,
For artists, everything was closed. We are both dancers at the Metropolitan Opera, and of course, that was closed for a very long time. And we basically just missed each other, the
mm,
dancers, the musicians, the singers, and it was sort of a serendipitous thing of saying, hey, why don't we try to figure out how to do a show even under these really strenuous circumstances? And Mara had produced before in Boulder while she was there during, we left New York, and I knew someone with a space downtown. And so we got together with the dancers of the Met and some of the orchestra members and some of the singers. And we were lucky enough to get to produce that together. And that was our first time producing a show. It was called Dancers of the Met. So that was right during the, height of COVID. We were socially distanced, masked, 6 feet apart. We only had 16 audience members, but it got a lovely write-up in the Wall Street Journal. And it was our first time sort of collaborating across disciplines and saying to artists, what do you want to do right now? And letting them explore. And then once we saw the reaction from the audience, the reaction from the artists themselves, I think we felt we found something that was missing, and we wanted to continue to see what could happen with it.
I love that so much because it is so you can tell by the energy in the room that this was born out of a real desire to do it. And
Mm.
so when I was there, I was blown away. I was blown away also, quite frankly, with how you both were able to bring this to life. And I would love to see the other side of it. What was it like for you?
So me, Izolda.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think, Liz kind of hit on this genesis. It it came from a lot of artists, I think feeling like for many, the first time they were having to work outside of the institutions that had held them for a long time. And we're talking about, 2 years of pause and all of the creative energy that starts to build up. When you can't do what you're used to doing. And I
Mm,
think there's this incredible creative energy that we're starting to realize. I think we're going to look back at this period and say, oh gosh, all this kind of world-changing art came out of that frustrating period. But I think for Liz and me, it was really in part just about the relationship between the two of us.
mm,
It's incredible to meet someone where you're like, hey, we're super different, but our skill sets are complementary and we like producing together. And so there's sort of this serendipitous meeting between the two of us.
mm,
We danced together before, but COVID threw us into all of these new roles that I don't think we would have discovered otherwise. And then we also serendipitously came across a space that allowed us to just play and explore the Blue Building in Midtown East. It's this former warehouse space, and I think it's a rare thing to have a space where you can really treat it as a creative laboratory. Um, but I think going back to COVID, it allowed that whole experience allowed us to get in touch with what we value the most
mm,
about live experiences. And I think it's like, yes, seeing great art is part of it, but it's about the communing around it. It's about the social experience. It's about being in community and um, as much about who, the audience and who's in the room with you as the artist. I think so often we experience art in this kind of very formal artists on stage, audiences sit, and then we all leave. And it's it's that coming together in a really fun, creative way that Liz and I both feel makes liveness so special.
I love that so much. And oh, by the way, I should tell you, I have embraced the pause. So there will be times people are like, are you still there? And I'm just listening. I'm listening and synthesizing what you both said. The thing that you just said that I loved so much about being in this live space together and sort of forming a community is really fabulous. And one of the things that with COVID, certainly knocking most artists for a loop, but I imagine as dancers and as dancers who probably dance with companies, unless you're soloists, you kind of need that, right? You kind of need that working in a group together. Like I'm a writer and a musician. I can play music by myself. I can sit in a coffee shop and write my books by myself. So it's not quite the same as being in a company of dancers. Can you talk a little bit? And Mara, I'm going to ask you to go first on this one. Can you talk a little bit about the notion of creating this community, even though it's not just dance? I mean, you're blending dance, opera, music, visual art. What choices are you making that help you build that trust and that credibility with the other artists, especially artists that are coming from different disciplines, to make this community?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you really hit on something so real with dance. You're always navigating doing it in community. And I think dance is in its nature multidisciplinary. Immediately, you're adding music, you're adding light, sets, etc. But Liz and I both dancing for the Metropolitan Opera. The Opera House is kind of the ultimate space for multidisciplinarians because you just have so many disciplines and genres mashed together to create these operatic productions. And Liz and I both are passionate multidisciplinarians, just in part from our years being in New York and loving art. But I think that the Met really kind of pushed us into that multidisciplinary space in a new way. But I think, as far as creating these communities, we're in the privileged position of having a lot of friends who are really world-class artists. And there's this trust that comes when you reach out to your friend and say, hey, we're doing this cool show. We have this idea, we want to facilitate your most fun project that you're dying to create. You start with a kind of just entry point that's trusting and open. But I think also the fact that Liz and I are both practicing artists, there's a kind of shared ground there. And so I think, that really allowed us to open up these creative channels and to, I think, create really honest relationships with artists. And then from there, it's kind of like one artist tells their friend and another artist tells their friend. And then, you approach an artist and they're like, oh, well, this person and this person did it. And so it kind of spreads organically like that.
And they told two friends and they told two friends. Yeah, and it is interesting. Like when I saw experience, I'm going to say Art Bath, the closing musician with the percussion where we all ended up having a dance party. By the way, does that happen all the time when you do Art Bath? Is there a big old dance party at the end?
Many times it does.
That's awesome. But what was interesting is watching the sort of art on the screen in the background, and then watching that artist, amazing, amazing, incredible musician, really play with the audience and have that beautiful interaction. And we were all there with you all. You know what I mean? We were right there. So Liz, with that, the say I'd love to get your thoughts on this, sort of the choices that help you build that, or is that something that's just happening organically and you're like, let's go for the ride?
I would say it's a mix of the two. So Mara and I like to say we curate an art bath as a tasting menu, a
Mm.
sampler of what is out there in New York. And so we usually start with one ingredient for the night, and that being one artist that we have a list of, dream artists we'd love to work with. We have a list of people who have reached out to us, and we start with one ingredient, knowing sort of the time of year it is and the vibe. And then from there, we start to build this meal, and where one artist complements the next, but is also radically different. And you're getting a little bit of a different taste, or you're bringing in a different crowd. So we opened the show that you saw with a soprano from the Metropolitan Opera. So that brings in a certain kind of crowd and taste. And then we moved into traditional gamelan music, which is another avenue of art and another group of people that would be interested. And then we moved into Big Yuki, and we had a film, and we had visual art. So we are making this robust meal of epic art. And so where the improv comes in is that we really let the artists do what they want to do. So we
Mm.
put them into place. We say, "What do you want to do?" They come back with us, and then we said, "That's lovely, go for it. But how about would you like to collaborate with some dancers from New York City Ballet?" Something they'd never maybe thought of or had access to. So from time to time, we do sprinkle, these artists with ideas of, would you like to collaborate here? We're going to have this visual art behind you as a moving backdrop. What colors are you thinking? What do you want to wear? So we start to put this meal together. So Mara and I are sort of the chefs, but we have really incredible ingredients to work with.
Yeah, you do. It was so, I mean, hearing Carmen is always just a blast for me. I'm a mezzo also. So I listening to it, I'm kind of going, oh, this is phenomenal. But then it did flow into something else. And I thought, oh, this is going to be jarring, but it wasn't. And part of that was you all sort of knowing how to have it flow, how to make it flow from one to the other. And this reminds me, actually, I perform at Nemacolin. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a resort in Pennsylvania, and they usually around Christmas time. And they had these dancers, some from New York City Ballet, some from Martha Graham, some from Alvin Ailey, and they were all going to give their version of Nutcracker. And you think to yourself, that's going to be either really great or really weird because they were all coming and doing their flavor, but it was flowing really well. And I realized that the way it was produced was it was women run. And so I can't help but sort of make that connection here too. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but women-led arts organizations are still really rare on major stages. They're really rare. So I would love to sort of talk with you about that facet of it. Is there something, and if so, what is it? Sort of a specific change creating action that artistic institutions could take this year to genuinely support women led creative ecosystems?
Well, that's a great question. I think I'm sure every women-led creative ecosystem is different and has different needs. However, I think that one thing that is at least true of our creative ecosystem that may be true of other women-led ecosystems is that Art Bath operates as a very kind of democratic space.
Mm.
So, as Liz mentioned, we curate these evenings very, very carefully. So there's no coincidence in the color that's on the screen behind the singer and how it flows into the entrance of the next thing. I mean, we're very detailed and thoughtful with every element.
Hmm.
However, we're so lucky, A, to work with each other and to have this balance of two very different perspectives coming together. And I think Liz and I have so much respect for one another and listen to each other and are open to each other's different views But then we work with this team, lighting, sound, stage management, production management, and everyone kind of has a little bit of a creative voice. So yes, those voices are sifting through the final decision making, which is Liz and me. But yeah, I mean, we operate as this kind of creative family, and
Mm,
it's this kind of like stew that gets made with
mm,
all of these wonderful elements. And so
mm,
I don't know that every women-led space is so democratic, but I think there is maybe I don't want to say egoless approach because that's certainly not the case, but maybe more of a listening approach
mm.
that we're able to use and have great success with.
Mhm.
Well, listening is key. That's that's for darn sure. Yeah, and what's interesting to me about that is that I can't help but think that uh, really we no one knows your job better than you do. No one knows the production designer's job better than they do in the space. So Liz, I would love to get your thoughts on that facet of it, that deep listening to sort of help formulate. Where do you see that going, and where would you like that to go in sort of the entire arena of arts?
Well, I think to piggyback off what Mara was saying about the listening, I actually think we can read each other's minds sometimes at this point. So there's some of that going on. There's this intuition that comes from being a working artist. And I think that the two of us, and now our team as well, we're so gelled that we like to see something before it even happens. How's the audience going to walk into the room? What's the flow of the space? Where's the line for the bar going to be? When people are experiencing this artist, should they be sitting? Should they be standing? The lighting designer is getting a sense of what color, the sound engineer. So we all are I'd like to think that we're propping the art itself up to its highest point that we
Mm,
are capable of doing. And a lot of that is listening to the artist, trusting our intuition, listening to each other's ideas. I love when we have group walkthroughs twice before a show. It's all very fast, actually, put together when it comes down to executing in the space. So we have a preliminary walkthrough with our whole team. We walk through the space moment by moment, how an audience will experience it. And that's when all the really fun, juicy stuff starts to get thrown out from others. Mara and I have our ideas, which are great and a good starting point. But then when we hear from others, like our scenic designer and our, stage managers, and we don't call them ushers, they're show fairies because they do so much more than just let people in and have them seated. They really guide the audience through the night. And our show fairies are people who were students of mine who have now graduated. And so we have a really dedicated group of show fairies who I feel have learned a lot along the way as far as production and just how to make art go from on paper to in real life and having an audience enjoy it. And I'm going off of to the question, but the initial question, but I feel that what I would love to continue is just seeing people enjoy themselves and be curious and maybe seeing something new or experiencing something new in their life. And one of my favorite things is when the show's actually happening. We've done all this work and we're standing in the back, and I get to see the audience's faces reaction to what they're seeing. I really love that. If it's a smile, if it's sometimes crying, hopefully in a good way, and those sort of things. It's those reactions and that sense of confidence that I think our team gets from me, like we did this, and we're really proud to help propel and present these artists.
yeah, and I noticed that being in the audience, I noticed all the people around me were just riveted to all of the stuff that was going on. And the dancers, I remember everybody was, because the way the David Rubenstein atrium, for example, is set, it's just chair, there's no rise. So we're all craning our necks to see what the dancers are doing, even while we're listening to the music. It was amazing. And so, yeah, the entire audience was with you the whole way, which I really love. I do want to say something to both of you. There are no long answers and there are no wrong answers here. So
Mm.
if you go
Okay.
somewhere, don't you worry. This is exactly where the conversation's supposed to be going. But you mentioned something about working with all these so many artists, and I think I read that it was like over 300 artists across all of these different disciplines. And you mentioned earlier they tell two friends and they tell two friends, and then are people coming to you, or if not, what is sort of the outreach strategy that you're using to inspire these artists to say yes, and even more so to feel personally invested in this shared artistic goal? Mara, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so we actually get that question a lot just because the artists that we present are often surprising and so different from one another. And so it's not like we're experts in just the field of dance or just the field of opera. It's like our shows this past weekend, we had I think probably a first time collaboration between a glass harmonica player, a didgeridoo player, and an aerialist, all of them being at the very, very tops of their fields.
Awesome.
And so there's no, I think there's no one way that we come to these artists. It's using that set just as an example. The glass harmonica player, we met through some shared Metropolitan Opera friends because he plays the glass harmonica in the orchestra for certain opera productions, and then formed a really great relationship with him. And he's this incredibly creative composer. Um, the didgeridoo artist we also came across through personal contacts, but there's a space in Brooklyn called Bar Lunatico. It's an incredible bar and music space, and we just really love and trust their programming. So sometimes we'll say, "Oh, what's Bar Lunatico doing?" and see that as a great source of inspiration for musicians. And we have a relationship with the guy who runs it. And then the aerialist we met at a party. But
Nice.
it was a party of like really fabulous world-class artists. So, but we also, Liz and I, when we're curating, will be going after that special sauce for our menu for the evening. And we often spend hours just looking, through looking on the internet, through Instagram, through programs from other institutions that we trust. Sometimes there are artists that we know of because they're wonderful and famous, and we'll have dreamed of working with them for a while. And I think there's this individual approach. It's like, do you just drop them a cold message in their DMs? It's like Instagram is this wonderful kind of, it gives you this unique access to almost anyone because you can always send a message, whether or not it'll be answered. Okay, maybe not, but you can always send a message. Or is it, a personal contact that you have, that type of thing. And then we kind of go from there.
I love DMs. It's gotten me some great interviews, like the two
Mhm.
of you coming on the show. Yeah. What about you, Liz? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, it in some ways it started as a ripple effect as well. We had our first yes at our first art bath. For us was Caleb Teicher, the tap dancer, and they graciously said yes and said, "We're putting together this little salon, and is there something that you would like to do?" And so when Caleb Teicher said yes, then we approached Anthony Roth Costanza from the Met, who we would see in the cafeteria walking around. And Anthony said, "Oh, I love Caleb's work. Yeah, I'll do the salon too." So from the beginning, it was a little bit of a ripple effect that legitimized us once one well-known artist in the dance world said yes, then one opera singer said yes, then one visual artist. So that was a, you know, kind of a natural progression. And then I think the quality of our work, I'd like to think also it brought people in. Once they came to see a show, they saw how we were presenting them, giving people space to do their own thing. And now here we are having presented over 300 artists, which it's so nice to just walk around the city and know some more folks. And I think our audience is also part of that. Our audience is super curious, super gracious and lovely. When acts are happening, performances are happening, it's pin silent. We don't serve drinks. We are all present. We are all there. So our audience is just as much a part of the show because they're fabulous and they show up, and we have, I don't think groupies is the right word, but we have fans and who are always there to support us, buy tickets, front row, and those dance parties happen after a lot of the shows because we've done that at our own shows from time to time, and we say, yeah, if you want to get up and dance, if you feel compelled, go for it. And so our team and our community showed up at the Lincoln Center show, and I think it gave others in the audience who hadn't been to Art Bath, they saw, oh, it's okay to get up and dance if you feel like it. Just because there are seats here and we're all facing one direction doesn't mean we can't get up and enjoy art in this sort of immersive way, rhythmically right there together. So yes, our audience is also on my list of artists, and just a special part of the evening.
And it's really funny because that's how I felt being at Art Bath at Lincoln Center. It felt very much like that. I felt very free to get. I'm not a I dance for fun. I'm not a dancer. And yet I felt perfectly free to join all of the people who are dancers who were dancing because it felt very welcoming, quite frankly. That's part of what I thought the magic was, that it felt like, come on in, the water's fine. And I know I just made an unintentional joke about Art Bath being the water's fine, but that's what it felt like when I was there, and my husband didn't get up and dance until later. He sort of, it's funny. He was a clown in the circus. You'd think he wouldn't be reticent, but he ends up being a little reticent. It took him a while to get up and dance. But then I grabbed onto it, if you see what I mean. And that sort of lingers. And I want to come to, I know you said you have something on January 16th, and I want to come to that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you have planned for that date.
Yeah, so we recently started working in this amazing space in the meatpacking district called Art X. It's a former nightclub. It was the famous nightclub Lotus, and it still very much has that vibe when you go in.
Mm,
It's
hmm
eclectic and weird, and you can kind of feel the spirits of all of the wild, famous people, Madonna, etc., who partied there. So we are doing this program in as part of the Prototype Festival, the renowned New Opera and Theater Festival that takes place every January. So it's very much an art bath, but it plays into the heavily music oriented vibe of that
hmm
festival. And we're working with some fabulous artists. So Liesel, the composer, multidisciplinary vocalist, Matthew Jamal Scott, the cellist and bassist, is kind of like absolutely out there, super inventive artist. We are working with the female-run hyper-physical dance duo Dual Rivet and the violinist Isabel I. Dernberger, and then also the wonderful, hilarious Jasmine Rice LaBeija, who's an operatic drag queen. So this is the program we have brewing for January.
Wow. I'm very excited to come to that. That's going to be super fun. Um, I what's interesting to me in listening to you both talk, and you said something that I'm like, oh, let's talk about that. There's a lot of to me, the feeling is sort of transformation. You walk in one person and you walk out a different person. It's almost a spiritual process, particularly for anyone who loves creativity and art. And so I kind of want to ask you both, about that intersection, about art and society and spirituality almost, or a sense of spirit. I would love to see, like, from we've got I know you have involvement with the International Society for Performing Arts, and from that vantage point, from sitting at this crossroad within the international arena, I would love to ask you, what do you think is the most overlooked role that the arts play in shaping society and culture and values and even human connection? Liz, I'd love to start with you on that.
Ooh, that's a big question.
I don't ask small questions. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry at all.
Well, for me, art is my religion. And so when we get into these spaces, no matter what they are, and we're presenting work, it's the human soul that is coming out and speaking. And so, for me, these venues that we get to put our work in is church, and this is the congregation, and the religion is art. And so just trying to do our best to serve the religion of art and
Mm.
and sharing the good word, if you will, and whatever that means for the individual in there or the artist. So just it's an honor when, artists are up there, they're giving themselves 100%. And it's just so interesting when we work with they're true artists. It's like, you might know them for their role, in Carmen, but they've got so many other layers that they want to share of what they're doing. And you see
Mm.
that time and time and again. And on not an international level, but a local level, we get so many times people saying to us, when I moved to New York, this is what I wanted to come to. This is what I thought it would happen. Would there'd be some really cool art? I get to meet some really cool people, and we would have a good time together. And like, in a way, almost like you feel sexy when you're there, if you want to dress up or not, if you want to have conversations or not. Do you want to talk to the visual artist? Do you want to have a cocktail? How do you want to explore the space, and how do you want to meet the artists and meeting them where they're at? So I love when people say, I've been here for 20 years and this is what I thought New York would be. And that's really, really touching. So on a local level, I guess that's sort of I think Mara can speak more to the international landscape because of her work at ISPA. But I think there's something, universal or even cosmic about that, just that connection between people and enjoyment, curiosity, and art can be this sort of powerful, moving religious experience.
Absolutely. And you touched on something that I think is very interesting, and that is individuals. And I guess you know, I would love to hear from you more about the ISPA, but also your thoughts on everywhere internationally. How can everyday people participate in this religion of art, if you will, and not just observe it?
Mhm.
It's a great question. So I'm the program and advancement manager at ISPA. It's my full-time occupation now, and it's an incredible vantage to really learn about art. And definitely a lot of what I absorb through that role gets filtered into the creative development of Art Bath, just in these incredible meditations on art that I get to have. I think that globally we're in this time that's so, I mean, we're seeing deep divisions and all of these forces working kind of against our experience of shared humanity in a lot of cases. And we see this on the international level a lot. There are all of these obstacles arising, keeping us from exchange, keeping us from um, meeting each other as humans, despite where we're coming from and our circumstances and our governments and our cultures. And through ISPA, it's been really inspiring to see those examples of when those barriers can break down, really through something that's quite simple, which is just being in these shared performance spaces and discovering one another across borders, across cultures, even just across neighborhoods, across disciplines. I think that even connecting to Art Bath, we in New York, we're all together in this crazy, wonderful city, but we can feel isolated sometimes.
Mhm.
We're so on our screens, so in our busy lives, and those spaces to come together. I loved what you said about Art Bath being a welcoming space. The spaces where we can come together and really connect are not that common. And art, when it's done well, is an incredible vehicle for that. And I mean, I think we would love to see more art spaces in the city, not just thinking about what's on stage, because sure, that's, I mean, incredibly important, but really thinking about art and its potential for audiences to come together in a super, super meaningful way. Like what does that look like? And that's what we're thinking about all the time through Art Bath and at our best achieving.
I love that. I keep saying that because I love what you're saying, both of you. And I'm kind of going, yeah, that's what I feel. What's interesting to me, how I'm sort of responding to this is start them while they're young, right? I'm wondering now, because when I do work in schools on creativity and writing and music, and when I go into schools, a lot of times kids don't trust not me, but don't trust that I actually want to see what they could create, what they might be thinking about, what they might want to put down on paper, or what they might want to sing or bang on a drum or something. It takes them a little while to get open to that sometimes, depending on honestly what part of the country they're in. And so when I work with kids and they open up, oh, it's a wellspring. There's just so much going on. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are, what your advice would be to kids, to parents who might want to get their kids more involved in arts, and also to kids themselves. Like what is the juice? What is the juice that we need? What is the sizzle to get kids excited about creating?
Mm,
Yeah,
that's
Liz, start with you.
yeah, no, that's beautiful. You know, sh- I teach ballet, and the students I teach are between the ages of 13 and 20 right now. And I love trying to pull out the artist in them. And I see their hesitance sometimes fighting themselves, oh, is this too much? Is this right? Of course I'm there to work on the technique of ballet with them, but bringing out the individual artist is so much fun. And I think a lot of times is say like giving them permission to try things, giving them great prompts for curiosity. I love to in class say, okay, we're going to do adagio, but now I want you to pick a color and you're going to dance that color. And let me see if I can
Mm,
guess the color. Okay, let's split the groups up into if you're an air sign or a fire sign, group one. If you're just to see if they see anything come up. And I'm like, okay, now let's do this combination. What are you wearing? Where are you? Are you in a field? Are you in a castle? And I like to give them prompts to come up with things. It's almost like looking at the clouds and finding animals in the
mhm,
clouds. So
mhm,
you've got something, a base. What do you want to do with it? And there's no wrong answers. And then I love when we try to encourage each group to go and then applaud for that group after they're done and really be present to watch them and seeing over the course of a semester, them loosening up and finding their voice and finding, maybe the pirouette's not perfect, it never will be, but how did you start it, go through it, and finish it? That's telling a story. So yes, with children, it's just they've got it all in there, and as adults, it's lovely when artists can tap back into what as children, that sense of play, but maybe even I've been trying to do this more often, but finding, something beautiful in the ordinary with my walk to rehearsal. Oh, that molding around that window is so glorious. Or look how that light is hitting the yellow in the leaves of the tree and look at the shadow. And so trying to find just beauty in the everyday is an artistic choice, and how you dress in the morning or if you don't want to dress, all those sort of things play into making life beautiful and in its own performance. So
Mm, mm, mm. It's funny. I worked at NASA for many years doing environmental education, and they would send me all over the world to do these earth science workshops. And when you said looking at clouds, and I went, cumulus clouds, those are the kinds of clouds you're looking at when you're looking at clouds that look like a rabbit or a dragon or whatever. And we used to make games out of it. But it's that kind of thing that I think is so fascinating because it gives you the chance to engage your imagination wherever you are, whoever you are, as soon as you start doing that. And the same with prompts, actually. When I go into schools now and I teach writing, I bring dice, and the dice have action, like object, location, profession on the dice, right? So you might roll the dice and you might have an accountant, a gold watch in the forest. And now let's write a story about that, right? So it's the same kind of thing that you're talking about, just on the writing front, which I adore. But something that I'm curious about with that, you said something else that I think is fascinating. And Mara, I'm going to want your take on this as well. You said that if you're an air sign or a fire sign, you're this. If you're water or earth, you're that. But then trusting themselves to imagine it and also do something about it, like having the confidence not just to imagine it, but to take action on it is something that I think is key for kids and also adults. That sometimes we may have these great imagination, but don't have the confidence to get started. So, Mara, I'd love to get your thoughts on that part of it.
Izolda, I think it's all about the community you're in. Um, and I think, Liz and I would just be sitting in our apartments having these imaginative experiences if we didn't have each other, if we didn't have our team, if we didn't have this incredible community of artists and audience members. And so I think it's about finding your people. It's about if there's someone you look up to or want to work with, reaching out. And it's wonderful how willing people are and excited people are to have conversations and to share ideas and create community because it's the juice of life.
Mm-mm,
It's the best part. I think Art Bath has kind of become this great community for people to be able to imagine boldly and connect with shared minds and take those steps. And this could be, yeah, whether you're an artist who comes and meets another artist and you know, wow, suddenly we have our next great project, which has happened, and it's beautiful to see that. But it's also just if you're someone who loves creative experiences and you want to just find those people who want to be in a space with you where you can imagine together. I think it's also if you are just looking for people who are your next friends, who are your next people who you feel commonality with. It's
mm.
like that's that's just as powerful in a lot of ways. So I think Art Bath is a space where you can really generate something meaningful no matter what your job is or where in life you are. It's just by finding those common people and having those shared experiences.
can
Yeah,
can I can I add to that,
of
Mara?
no, you may not. Of course, please.
I also think, Mara, that we should acknowledge how much risk we take. And me
That's a
and you
good
are
point.
not we are not adverse to risk. And neither are our wonderful team and community. And I think that's an underlying theme for all of us to get this crazy thing off the ground and running is, there's that saying, no reward without risk. And we risk so much. I mean, did I know anything about lighting or sound before any of this started? Not really. Did I know
Mm,
about how to do taxes for artists? No. But we have a team of people who have taught me. This is how I do it. This is how I do it. But just, I think Mara and I have really, from the get-go, jumped into the deep end on every level and then had to fight and figure out how to swim to the top, how to fundraise, how to find these venues, how to do licensing, how to do bars, sound, lights, chair setup. It goes on and on. We're trained dancers, so it's just being comfortable in the unknown a lot of times too.
That's so good, Liz, and you're so right. But I think I had someone say something that's helped me a lot throughout my career in producing and admin and projects and just taking risk, which is you think about it almost like a crossword puzzle. And if you look at the whole crossword puzzle, it's like, oh my God, I have to fill all this in. It can be overwhelming. But if you just start with one word and then all of a sudden that's your first letter on the next word, and it's just, okay, one word at a time, one word at a time. And of course, you're thinking about the greater goal, but just keep filling in those words and you're headed in the right direction.
I couldn't agree more. I produce shows and plan events and things like that sometimes. And if I try to look at it as the gestalt, I do get overwhelmed. It does kind of make me go, holy crap, I want to run. But if I go, okay, what's one small thing I need to do right now? What's the next small thing? And each one leads to the next step. And I agree with you completely both on that. But it is interesting to me that you both kind of went, well, this is the risk. We're willing to take it. And that's what we're going to do. And yet, one of the things that I had somebody on the show yesterday, we did his interview, and he was talking about your chronotype and also your environment. And here's what I don't know if you know what a chronotype is, but a chronotype is what part of the day, what time of the day you devote to what tasks. There might be times when you're better suited to uh, practicing your art, dancing. There might be times of the day you're better used to doing the admin, all of that, but also your environment. And so you've both talked about that notion of getting into these really cool spaces and exploring them, and you're wearing many hats. What do you do to sort of optimize how you get all this stuff done?
Pressure from Mara.
Sorry, Liz.
That's hilarious.
Um,
All right, asked and answered.
That's all right. That's an inside joke. She's good at staying on task, and
Mhm.
I might go off into outer space, but I think I love kind of identifying. It'd be good for me to identify when I'm most good at certain tasks. I would like to say, but I don't know. For me, it looks like in the morning when I from 7 to 9 a.m. I can do some really great emails.
Mhm.
Then getting towards the afternoon, I go missing. So yeah, I don't know.
I no, I get it. I get it. I wake up in the morning, I do my yoga, I do my journaling, and then I write for an hour without fail. Because if I try to write later in the day, I'm too tired, and whatever creativity there might have been has leaked out my ears. So that's just how I am. And I think we're all different there. Mara, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of the opposite. I am an evening person, and
Mm.
so poor Liz starts to hear from me when she's already shutting down.
Mhm.
But I'd like to think that then she wakes up the next morning. It's like, oh, well, now I have the next things for this day.
Right.
But I think I operate on high anxiety sometimes. So it's like, oh my God, all this needs to get done, and I can't go to sleep until we start to check things off the list. But I also think, there's this. Liz and I like that she said, "Oh, we can read each other's minds." We have this shared vision of the thing it is that we're working toward.
Hmm.
And so all of these things, they have to happen to get there. They have to happen to get there. And whether it's writing emails on the train or it's calling each other on our lunch breaks or it's, squeezing in that meeting. We are so compelled by the thing it is that we're ultimately creating that we just, we make it happen.
And that's so much of it is having the drive to do it. The energy comes from the desire to get it done and to make it something bigger than the individual parts, which I think Art Bath is. Let me I honestly I could keep you both here for the next 6 hours because this is such a fun conversation. I do have a few last questions though. I kind of want to know, for example, immersive salons like Art Bath have been around since the Enlightenment, and now you all are kind of redefining that lineage for today and into the future. So when I want you to forecast, when future historians look back, what cultural shift do you hope Art Bath will have sparked?
Hop in there, Liz.
Oh, good gosh. I mean, as I love history. I'm a history buff, and to even be considered in the canon of the other art salons that have happened before us would be a magical thing. But I do think that we're somewhere in the footnotes right now, just because of the artists who have said yes and presenting their work in unique ways. And I think we've talked about it in the beginning of the show that this seed was born out of necessity from COVID and feeling stifled, and our artistic homes were shut down. And so it was just um, out of necessity, finding how we can continue to create and have a shared experience. And I think and it also what's going on in the world right now, needing to find like-minded people and feel safe and pushing the boundaries of what art can be and humanity. And so with every period of time when there's been, these lovely art salons, it's been a reaction to what's going on around them. And I think we're right in that same spot.
And I can add on to that. I think that um, there are these incredible institutions all over the world that are big presenting institutions for art, and they play an essential role. And those institutions they're not all the same, but there's a formality to the artistic experience. And I think we've entered a time when two things are happening. One, it's very difficult to make art in experimental, less formal spaces just because of the financial realities of
Mm,
life in the world right now. But also, I think that for a variety of reasons, artists and audiences are both hungry to experience art in ways that are not necessarily, showing up, sitting in the audience and leaving. And so I think Art Bath, we're looking to these traditions where art is so much more than something that's just put on a stage. It's like, what's that thing that drives people to, as I was saying before, these live shared experiences. And my hope is that Art Bath can kind of trigger this imagination among institutions, artists, people who love art for how we can experience it together in ways that are most meaningful. And this isn't new. It's like, as you mentioned, this tradition goes back into history, but I think that there's something really, really elemental and deep in coming together in a way that is that salon social shared live experience.
And a lot of our collaborations have gone on to have other lives, which is really, really special as far as kind of the longevity of what this is artistically, the waves that might have come from an art bath. Like some of the collaborations that we put together and had there have gone on now to Carnegie Hall. And I mean, there's quite a few. I'm sure Mara, you can help me think of a few, but one artist met another artist that weren't even working together in that evening, and then they have created something outside of an art bath. So the ripple effects keep going, and we see, oh, look, so and so met at this art bath, and now they're working together doing it, in Paris. How cool, So that's really great.
Yeah, this whole notion of ripple effects is fabulous to me because it does give you it gives you greater life, right? It's Art Bath is an immersive experience, and then that immersive experience can go elsewhere, and the tendrils of it are going to, go out into the universe. We're going to call it. So, I do want to ask you if somebody's dreaming of building something as bold as Art Bath, a movement, a space for other creatives, anything like that. What is the very first step you tell them to take, and what do you think is the pitfall that they might avoid at all costs?
Hmm. I think the first step is to decide that you're going to do it. Um, I think, hovering at the edge of doing it is something that certainly I did for a long time. So it's not, you can think, oh, this would be a cool thing, and then not do it. Like it's totally normal, and also going for it is the difference. And then I think um, kind of looking at, okay, what can I actually achieve right now? What is possible? So not imagining something that really isn't feasible, but okay, given this idea, given my community, given my resources, what can I actually do? And taking that first step, diving in, jumping in. That yeah, that you're not sure where it's going to take you. It could lead somewhere you didn't really expect, but it's the act of going for it that makes all of the difference. I think as far as pitfalls go, it's about being open to changing and improvising and pivoting and going with the flow. It's like if you are kind of a stick in the mud and you're not moving with the energy and community and people and reality and feedback around you, it's gonna die. Like
Mm.
it's an evolving organism. Everything is, and any project is, and you just have to be open and willing and eager to evolve.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you say that because the thing that kept popping into my head was don't be rigid. Don't get so locked into the one way you think it needs to happen
Mhm.
that you don't see other possibilities, other chances, other opportunities, other risks that you might take that might really pay off. What about you? And Liz, do you have thoughts?
I think Mara, you nailed it on the head. And the power of following up with an email. There's a lot in that. Mara's very good at that, especially when it comes to our wonderful sponsors and maybe identifying people within a night who are on board and love what we're doing and following up with them and going to get a coffee and seeing what they're all about. So the follow-up and making time to cultivate those folks who help propel this to financially go forward.
Yeah, and that notion of hey, we're building relationships that are going to carry us forward, all of us, not just some of us, but all of us, I think is crucial. And I think it's a lot of people don't realize just how crucial that email, that thank you, that connection, that shared moment in the experience really is. So I appreciate you both saying that. That's really cool. Honestly, as I said, I could keep you here for the next 6 hours. I have like 20 more questions I could ask, but I know you probably both have rehearsal to get to or some other artistic creative thing. I do want to say, first of all, thank you to both of you, Liz and Mara, for being here, for taking the time to talk about Art Bath and about your work. If somebody wants to get more involved, if somebody wants to come to an Art Bath, either the one on January 16th or future ones, where do they need to go? Tell me socials, tell me your website so that we can put it out there so that people can know where to find you.
Yeah, our Instagram is Art Bath NYC, and our website is the same, www.artbathnyc.com. And you can find all the information there. We have a newsletter you can sign up for as well. You can just straight up DM us on Instagram. So we are the two that run the show. So we'll see any emails that come on through.
Awesome. And we will I'll be putting that in the show notes so that if you're listening to this, you can just go ahead and click right on the links and you'll get right to Art Bath or right on Instagram, be able to find Liz and Mara and the really cool work they're doing. All right. Thank you both so much for that. I have just a couple last questions. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. These are just the last two. And they're silly questions, but I find that they can yield some profound answers. And Liz, I'm going to ask you to answer this one first. And then Mara, you'll answer the other one first. And the question is this: what is it that gets you out of bed in the morning? And I don't mean your alarm.
Um, I really love my life. I think there's so much beauty in each day, and whatever that means is a mystery. So, I mean, honestly, what gets me out of bed is my little dog and a cup of coffee, but on a
Hmm.
physical level. But just that you don't know what's coming, and it can be really beautiful. And starting with that intention that I get to go do this, I get to go teach, I get to go to rehearsal, I get to create this show, really makes life worth living, and knowing that I have wonderful friends and family surrounding me while I'm doing it.
I love that. And I do the same thing. It's never I have to or I should. It's always I get to. So I appreciate that very much. And what about you?
Um, I think I share with Liz just a lot of joy and wonder with the world around me. I'm so lucky to have my schedule packed with really interesting shows that I'm going to, and it's like I can't ever see all the exhibitions I want to go to, try all the food, see all the friends. It's like, I'm like every person, and that sometimes I'm exhausted or just frustrated with the world and life. But it's, even on my block, there are so many interesting people and cool places and things to discover. And I think that what we do as work is at its best just a reflection of the tip of the iceberg of all of the beauty and wonder and creativity in the world. And I kind of can't wait to get at it every day.
That is fabulous. I love that. And yeah, it's amazing. I mean, okay. I'm going to just have to say it this way. We three are very lucky in that we live in one of the most vibrant cities on the planet. So that helps to be able to walk out your door and see amazing stuff right in front of you and experience it. And yet, one of the things I tell my clients always is you can find the wonder anywhere, right? You can fall in love with what you're doing while you're doing it. You can look at a tree wherever you are, if there are trees, or look at sand if you're in the desert or whatever. But the point is that there's something beautiful and wonderful no matter where you are, if you open your eyes and your other senses and see it and appreciate it. So I do appreciate very much what you both said. All righty, here is the last question. Mara, you will go first. And Liz, try to be surprised when you hear it again. And the question is this: if you had an airplane, environmentally friendly, of course, that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
Ooh, that's a cool question.
Thanks.
This might sound really corny, but give someone a hug.
That's not corny at all. I think that's lovely. I know. I mean, we live in an increasingly sort of separated society, and certainly COVID did not help matters. So I think that's lovely. Yeah, it can find that connection. I love that. All right, cool. Liz, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I have two answers. Sorry.
No, you have 2 airplanes is good. No
Okay,
problem.
great. So my first initial reaction when you said that would to be to write follow your intuition. And
Nice.
then I was thinking, Mara always tells me, she says, "You're doing great. We're doing great." And I think that goes a long
Oh,
way. So I think if you just put up, "You're doing great," would like do wonders. So
I love that. I actually put that up on social periodically. You're doing great. Keep that stuff up. Sometimes I don't say stuff. Sometimes I say shit, but you know what I mean. Anyway, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you both. Those are great airplane writings. And that is, it's a little, as I said, it's a strange question, but it can yield some really profound answers. And in fact, I've actually done episodes of just what people have said, and you can listen to like 10 minutes of this really profound life advice as the answer to that question. It's really quite amazing. Liz and Mara, both of you, I am super grateful that you took the time to be here. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm excited to go to the next Art Bath and I'm going to be one of your participant supporters as much as I can, as often as you are doing these in New York City. Thank you so much for taking the time. This has been really great.
thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you, Izolda. It's really been such a pleasure.
Oh, this is just like, I'm all kerfuffled now because this is so like two people who are really bringing art to such a beautiful place it does my heart good. So yay. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, reminding you as always that this is the opportunity to figure out your own creativity and figure out what you want to try. That's what we're all about here on this show. You know what you need to do. You need to go find Art Bath at artbathnyc.com or follow them on Insta. If you're in New York City, if you're going to be visiting New York City when they're doing an art bath, I'm just going to encourage you to go. It was such a fun experience. And as I said, I hounded them and was like, please be on my show and talk about this because this is so amazing. So find them, follow them, get tickets, come to an art bath. You will love it. As I said earlier, I am Izolda Trachtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, reminding you to be curious, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trachtenberg and is copyright 2025. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.